Mr. Frankel, a question for Governor Carter.
Governor, we always seem in our elections, and maybe in between too, to argue about who can be tougher in the world. Give or take a few $billion, give or take one weapon systems, our leading politicians, and I think you two gentlemen, seem to settle roughly on the same strategy in the world at roughly the same Pentagon budget cost. How bad do things have to get in our own economy? Or how much backwardness and hunger would it take in the world to persuade you that our national security and our survival require very drastic cutbacks in arms spending and dramatic new efforts in other directions?
Well, always in the past, we've had an ability to have a strong defense and also to have a strong domestic economy, and also to be strong in our reputation and influence within the community of nations. These characteristics of our country have been endangered under Mr. Ford. We are no longer respected. In a showdown vote in the United Nations or in any other international council, we're lucky to get 20% of the other nations to vote with us. Our allies feel that we've neglected them. The so-called Nixon shocks against Japan have weakened our relationships there. Under this administration, we've also had an inclination to keep separate the European countries, thinking that if they are separate, then we can dominate them and proceed with our secret Lone Ranger type diplomatic efforts. I would also like to point out that we in this country have let our economy go down the drain. The worst inflation since the Great Depression, the highest unemployment of any developed nation of the world. We have a higher unemployment rate in this country than Great Britain, than West Germany. Our unemployment rate is twice as high as it is in Italy. It's 3 or 4 times as high as it is in Japan. And that terrible circumstance in this country is exported overseas. We comprise about 30% of the world's economic, trade, power, influence. And when we're weak at home, weaker than all our allies, that weakness weakens the whole free world. So strong economy is very important. Another thing that we need to do is to reestablish the good relationships that we ought to have between the United States and our natural allies and friends. They have felt neglected. And using that base of strength, and using the idealism, the honesty, the predictability, the commitment, the integrity of our own country, that's where our strength lies. And that would permit us to deal with the developing nations in a position of strength. Under this administration, we've had a continuation of the so-called balance of power politics, where everything is looked on as a struggle between us on the one side, the Soviet Union on the other. Our allies, the smaller countries, get trampled in the rush. What we need is to try to seek individualized bilateral relationships with countries, regardless of their size, and to establish world order politics, which means that we want to preserve peace through strength. We also want to revert back to the stature and the respect that our country had in previous administrations. Now, I can't say when this can come, but I can guarantee you it will not come if Gerald Ford is reelected and this present policy is continued. It will come if I'm elected.